You're watching The Nation, and today's discussion is indeed important, especially to those of us in the media. It is World Press Freedom Day. And of course, as you can guess, the question and discussion will be around press freedom. Do we really have it? And what are some other contributing factors? Now, of course, World Press Freedom Day celebrates the fundamental principles of press freedom, as well as assesses the state of press freedom throughout the world, and Malaysia defends the media from attacks on their independence and pays tribute to journalists who have lost their lives in the line of duty. And of course, in our country, we have much reason to celebrate. Recently, Malaysia has in fact bumped up 22 spots to the 123rd position, making it the top-ranked country in Southeast Asia for World Press Freedom Index, which is a report compiled by Reporters Without Borders, otherwise known as RSF. With us today in the studio, I have two very special guests, very seasoned journalists and communicators. Firstly, Haresh Deol, who is the Deputy President of the Malaysian National Press Club, as well as editor of 2213.my, and Faridah Hameed, who is a communication and leadership coach, and of course her very own content creator as well. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being with us here today. Both of you, of course, well versed in the world of media and communications. The government, when they took over in 2018, a couple of months after that, and I quote a local daily, did say that they will now try their best to ensure there is more press freedom, or rather freedom of the press. What has happened since, though? If we take a quick report card check.
It's pretty much been the same. If you ask me as a practicing journalist, we are seeing the same kind of reports, the same kind of language, the same kind of tone, the same kind of script, but different actors, different characters.
Right.
So to me,
the way
it's the same narrative. I mean, let's say, for example, certain publications were very pro opposition in the past. They are now suddenly pro government. If they are, to their stand of being pro-opposition, they should rightfully be pro-opposition with the current opposition. But we don't see that. So, to me, nothing much has really changed, to be honest.
Okay, so
we're still seeing the same narrative.
So that hasn't come through, it hasn't come into fruition at all yet.
I mean, some people are, saying that, we're seeing new changes, we're seeing this, we're seeing that. One thing that annoys me the most is the term Malaysia Baru, because there's nothing new about the country. We're not a republic, we're still Malaysia as it is.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, there are slight changes here and there. But overall, we're still seeing the same kind of narratives.
All right, but people have perceived it to be a breath of fresh air since G14. Farida, what is your opinion, the state of the press in Malaysia today?
Yeah, I actually agree with Haresh on many fronts. That, but I actually see the problem is that the mindsets have not changed. So, excuse me. So when you see the opposition now in government, I reckon that a big part of the problem is that these people are just not media savvy. They don't know how to deal with the media. And so they are saying things expecting to be covered, expecting the media to maybe kowtow to them, but they don't know how to engage the media in substantive type of discussions, so that they get their message across to the public in a way that is the public can accept. And also, I think we've spoken about this before, I think it's really important that they keep the public informed about the steps that are being made. I think, you have new players, you have new actors, but I think one of the problems is that they're not keeping a lot of us informed about some of the things that are going on. So there's still, I believe, a feeling of a lack of transparency. And then also, I think some of the acts that were said that were going to be repealed that have not been repealed, like the Sedition Act. So we're all in a bit of a, I won't say quandary, but I'll say it's a bit of a flux. We kind of don't know where we are going in terms of where the government is looking to ensure that we have more freedom. But on the positive side, I think it's great that we are 22 points up. I think in Southeast Asia we are, the leading country. So if we don't make any mistakes, the only place to go is to go up.
Yeah.
But then that remains to be seen.
You said that one of the best jobs you ever had was being a journalist back in the day. Haresh, you yourself, you said you grew up in a newsroom, so it's pretty much in your blood. How do you feel that about news reporting now? Because it is a known fact that in Malaysia, if you sort of toe the line or, God forbid, cross that line, you will be apprehended.
I think most of the time, if I may, most of the time the lines are self-created. I came from an establishment whereby we tried to push as much as possible, but at the same time, I think individuals drew that line instead of the regulators, perhaps to fit their best interests. But I don't want to go down that road. But as far as I'm concerned, right now, I'm speaking as the editor of 2213. I set the rules, and with the collective decision of my team, and we sit down and we discuss and we decide what, at the end of the day, best reflects the people's perspectives. I think that is how newsrooms have to change. It's no longer a decision made by a handful of people in the newsroom, but it's about what the people out there would want to hear, would want to listen, would want to, it's like in the past we used to have conversations in coffee shops.
Yeah.
Today, those conversations are amplified. So if we don't record those conversations, we are only fooling ourselves.
Do you feel that we're on the ball enough, that our quality of news reporting, as you have pointed out as well, newsrooms are shutting down, students are perhaps not getting the kind of exposure that they should, whether it's at the university level or coming into a media agency, for example?
Well, I agree. I think the self-censorship issue, though, is nothing new. It's been around for a long time. When I was a journalist as well, I was lucky that I used to work with veteran journalists who really worked their way up. I mean, they were not degree holders or anything. So I was taught by these people to just go after the news, to ask the hard-hitting questions. I couldn't come back to the newsroom if I didn't have a story that was different from the other papers. I mean, that's how it was.
Correct.
Yeah. And we had to have a different angle on those stories. What I've seen and I've heard now is that a lot of the stuff that's being reported is coming through press releases and news conferences and those kinds of things. But there's so many untold stories, in my opinion. As Haresh said, the stories that people are talking about, in the mamak shops, the man in the street kind of issues that everyday people are facing. I don't know why we're not going more into those kinds of stories, which I think is where the meat of what is happening in Malaysia today. There's so many stories there, but for some reason, there seems to be this preoccupation with reporting on ministers and policies, and that's important.
Yes.
And I think the mainstream news media may want to do that, but I think like Haresh's online news website and some of the others as well, I think that's what they're trying to do, is that they're trying to get behind or under the hood and to see what is actually happening outside of the traditional news and the mainstream news. And I think that's really, really important because those are stories that are gems,
Yeah, absolutely.
Just very, very quickly, I just want to say this. Faridah and we came from an organization in the past that thrive on humanizing stories.
Yes.
Yeah?
That's the right way, I think, to put it.
And you know
Humanizing
what? It's been around for over 100 years. It was shut down recently for reasons best known to the decision makers. But as far as we are concerned, that model of telling those kind of stories still works till today. So that's what we try to do at 2213.
Absolutely. So news and content and the kind of extent that we go to really bring that news and content to the people is important. What do you think should be done now? We've moved up 22 spots. Apparently that makes us a little bit more, I don't know, flexible or relaxed when it comes to news reporting. But obviously we're still a long, long way. And it just seems like when you say go to the coffee shop or you speak to the man on the street, everybody's complaining about the lack of good quality news. And today being World Press Freedom Day, how far do we really have to shoot that bullet?
I think it's a chicken and egg story because a lot of newspapers are shutting down because newspapers survive on advertising.
Fair, but you have social media there.
Exactly. So social media news is gaining a lot of traction. So how do you balance that in terms of having the news where people want to read the news, and then also having the money or the finances to sustain that? So this is where I think the people who do call themselves journalists, the trained professionals like Haresh and many of the others who are out there, I think they are the ones now in a position to push the envelope and to ask those questions. Where I see the problem is that a lot of journalists today are not asking the hard questions. They're letting policymakers get away with answering giving superficial answers. And that is where the problem is, because I think if you ask those difficult questions, you hold the people who have been voted in accountable.
Yeah.
They are accountable to us.
That's right.
We voted them into power. And they have to learn how to answer to us. They don't get away because the previous government got away with giving a lot of superficial answers, and this is what people don't want to read, which is then why the fake news then starts
coming to that.
like
That's
that
right.
just has its own fire,
Yeah.
and it takes off so easily. So that is where I see the problem. We are not going into the real substantive issues.
So who takes ownership of this? The government, i.e. the ministry, individuals such as yourselves, or companies, media organizations?
You see, no disrespect to my fellow colleagues, real journalists out there, trained journalists out there, trained editors, those who have, spent years in the newsroom, they are finding it tough because there are so many things that they would love to tell. They would love to tell it as it is, but then you have suddenly, we've got the business angle to look at, we've got the financial angle to look at, and then you have certain quarters who compare the current landscape in this country to what occurs elsewhere. For example, in the establishments abroad. You see, they work on a different model altogether. You see, so and here in this country, we are so used to receiving news for free that everyone expects free news. So in a way, we have turned into journalists have turned into social welfare workers.
Absolutely, coming to the point of cost, dollars and cents.
Correct,
the job doesn't even pay well.
Correct, it does not. It does not pay well.
Yes.
A lot of, and this trickled down to even colleges. Do you know that a lot of colleges these days do not offer journalism courses simply because the job opportunities are not really there. We can look at the other side and go like, there are many new online outfits and stuff like that, but the sustainable model, it's easy to come up with something, but can we sustain for the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? You say these are questions that we need to ask ourselves. I'm pretty sure these are questions that even the decision makers at Bernama News Channels are also asking themselves.
Yeah, that's right.
It boils down to dollars and cents.
When we think about progress,
and I have to emphasize this, boils down to dollars and cents without compromising integrity. Now that is so difficult.
That's a huge sort of vault to look at.
Correct.
Transparency, credibility, integrity with proper news reporting, fair and just. Let's begin there.
Correct.
As you said, in the past we've had to be sort of on a dotted line or bias here and there. Now hopefully there's a little bit more bravery or courage amongst journalists, but that also depends on who really wants to push that bar and thread that line. What are some solutions moving forward? You're trying to do as much as you can by being vocal.
You see, that's the thing. We live in a very templated world whereby if we believe someone is vocal, he's on the other side. That's wrong. Yeah?
But at least you're putting your thoughts, your opinions out there.
It's at the end of the day an opinion. You can differ, you can disagree, it's fine, but it's an opinion. And this opinion is not just mine per se, but it's based on research, based on feedback. So it's not just Haresh, let's say for example, I'm speaking on behalf of myself, waking up early morning and going like, I think this is wrong and just blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, vocal doesn't have to be negative, but perhaps it's been perceived.
Correct, but it's perceived, that's the problem.
That's the problem in this country, I believe.
In many parts as well.
How do we get the youth segment, who of course played a huge part come G14 to give the boot to the previous establishment, bring in the new government? Of course we've seen that was full steam at that point, and then sort of it's tapered down now with what we believe, or what I believe, is a lack of communication with the Malaysia Baru. How do we get the buy-in of the youth?
Yeah, I think firstly you have to also look at it as it's a lot more competitive now, because you've got a lot of online news websites, then you've got people reading news off social media, and then fake news flying everywhere as well. And I think with the young people, firstly we understand that the attention span, not just with young people but everybody in general, the attention span is very short. What is happening, I believe, with a lot of the news media, everybody wants to have the breaking news. Yeah. But very few people will wait to check and make sure, firstly, that they confirm that this is actual news, and then even fewer people will go and do the research and to be able to write or present something that is a little bit more deep
and unique.
And unique. But then the question, on the flip side, are people going to have the patience to listen to something or to read something that is a little bit more in depth? So it's in constant flux, and I wish I had an answer, but I strongly believe the biggest competitor or the biggest edge that a lot of media agencies are going to have on media websites is that if you still get information or you write it from a human perspective, as Haresh said, humanize the stories, that's what people ultimately, like to read stories of other people.
Yeah.
And that to me will be your differentiator, because all other things being equal, how much can you compete with others on breaking news? I mean, Bernama will break news before a lot of the other smaller media
We are
agencies.
the National
can
News
break
Agency.
yeah.
But this is a big problem, and I must say this out loud. Yeah, media organizations are in a fix as well.
Yeah.
Because they need to break stories. They need to be
Yes.
out there quick. They need to get the numbers, because we are so number driven. It's all about clickbaits. It's all about how many, millions and billions unique visitors and stuff like that you get. So much so that it's driven towards all that.
Business, more like a business.
And can you blame them? Because at the end of the day, advertisers,
Yes.
third parties,
Yes.
they only look at those numbers. They don't care if, it's come to a point, and I must say this as well, that certain people don't care about the quality. As long as you've got the numbers,
Yeah.
it's fine by us.
That's pretty
Yeah.
normal,
That's the
I think, on
advertiser
social media
issue
now.
that
But
everybody
perhaps
faces.
media, the
Yeah.
fourth estate, as we refer to them, should evolve a little bit more aggressively.
It has evolved, if you ask me. It has evolved in so many ways. It's the question is not about evolving, because the media landscape in this country and worldwide will continue to evolve. We are going to have data playing a huge role, identifying demographics, going to your niche targeted market. All this is going to change the
But all
landscape.
that is moot if media agencies, and I refer to them across the board, whether you're print or broadcast, don't have that courage to step up and present those numbers.
So the word is embrace. I think a lot of us are not embracing this evolution. We are still believing that, oh, we did it before, it worked, it'll work. It's not. It's not
I
that
think the
case.
advertisers also have not changed their mindset, right?
Yeah.
So
I
they're
mean,
afraid.
Faridah, some people say that print is dead.
Yeah, I
But if you
don't-
look at
don't
the
believe it,
ads, you talk to ad guys, they would say that print garners more money
Revenue.
than online.
Yeah.
So,
It was a sensational headline, funnily enough,
Yeah.
that print is dead.
Yeah.
Then what about media independence? How do we gain that?
Ali?
Faridah?
Silence.
Again, I wish I had an answer, but I think I'll still go back to the fundamentals of journalism. It's the fourth estate. We are the checks and balances
That's
to
right.
the government of the day. That has not changed in in over 100 years. So the independence. Personally, I feel there's more independence now. I believe that there are a bit more questions being asked, that conversations being held that weren't held before. But I do agree with Haresh in the sense that the decision makers must also change their mindset in the media agencies, in the advertising agencies, because they've been so comfortable for so long that they'll stay with the tried and tested.
How do we get
the safe confines of the news that doesn't push the envelope?
Right.
And so they themselves have to change, because if they're trying to sell products, they're trying to sell products because they're advertising in the media. But then what does the public want to read? The public doesn't want to read the same old as well. So they have to evolve.
And what about institutionalized media with bigwigs who sit on the board or sit right on top? I don't think, are embracing or have evolved. And that makes it just that much harder for change.
You've
isn't
said it. You've just said
I
it.
don't lose my job.
I know.
All right,
I
let's
don't
talk
need to
about the
say.
protection of journalists, to use a general term out there. We've seen internationally as well, there have been many things that have happened. At least 95 journalists were killed last year, in fact, during the course of their work, according to the International Federation of Journalists. And these figures include anyone working in any kind of capacity for a media organization. And of course, 2018, one killing that was made quite popular and got global attention was the prominent Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. He was murdered last October after going after the Saudi Consul General in Turkey. What were your thoughts coming out of these kind of issues, and how do you feel about our journalists who really tirelessly are out there? In fact, Bernama, our very own staff here in 2011, lost his life.
You see, we had an article about this photographer. He's a war photographer by the name of Henry Beba. He's French, but he's based in Kuala Lumpur. Now, he has covered, you name it, every war out there. And he told us in that article, whereby in the past, when you wear a press vest and a helmet, people actually stopped firing. That is the respect they had, regardless of which side.
Yeah.
The opposing armies, they actually stopped. But today, they will continue to fire at you.
Yeah.
So it's somehow, and it's not just in Malaysia, worldwide.
Yeah.
The definition of press has somehow been lost, and we need to find that voice back again. And at home, yes, we may not be covering wars and all that, but look, we are facing our own wars. Do you know that we've got so many good veteran journalists out there who are out of jobs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about them?
Yeah.
That's a war for them. They've got to put food on their table.
That's right. It's all
see?
they've known, and now there's absolutely
Yeah,
Correct.
and they are among the best.
Correct. They are among the best. And what are we doing to tap on their capabilities, their expertise?
Their experience.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it seems
Yes,
as if
we need the youths to push us forward, but I will never ever dismiss the maturity and the experience of a veteran, seasoned person.
Do you find that perhaps there could be a possibility of having them come back into the system to help teach younger journalists?
Yes, I wish. And through the National Press Club, in fact, we are trying very hard to start embarking on programs to get all these veteran journalists on board, whereby we can get organized talks, workshops, even try and get job placements for them.
Yeah.
You see, so this is our small contribution, but we alone can't do so much, you see. So we really hope that people out there would open their eyes. And it's not just about journalists, it's just about the elders out there. There are so many of them.
Yeah.
And we need to. I'm going to be 70, 80 one day. So
Yeah.
does that mean that I'm supposed to be just dead?
No.
That's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to add on that when I was saying that it's the best job I ever had,
Yeah.
and that the schools are closing. Now, for me, the most important thing that I learned as a young journalist was I met Queen Elizabeth II, and I interviewed a guy who collected rubbish.
Right.
It teaches you to talk to people from every walk of
Absolutely.
life. It teaches you confidence, and the ability to write under pressure and to be concise and to be sharp and to be interesting. These are not soft skills, these are life skills that apply to every other job you're going to have. It has worked in every other job I've ever had. So I don't understand why young people think that somehow this job, just because it may not pay that well yet, is not something that they want to do, because what you will learn as a young journalist, you're going to be learning all these skills and meeting all these amazing people. You learn how to think on your feet. You learn to ask clarifying questions. You cannot learn that anywhere in any other job except being a journalist.
I think there's just one key word here. I think not only journalism, but a lot of industries out there, we are missing one element, and that is the rock star element. We don't have an idol. You see, we don't have someone to look up to. It's sports.
Yeah.
Even in politics, for example, even in the newsrooms.
Yeah. So obviously, I think to wrap up this conversation, we don't have enough of focus and sort of really energy being put towards creating journalists or even recognizing some of these, I guess, icons who have done so well. Come World Press Freedom Day today, 2019, worldwide. In Malaysia, what, in your personal opinions, very quickly, do you think the government should do in terms of actually really walking the walk and talking the talk?
Okay, for me, it's repeal the Sedition Act.
Yeah.
That's the quick answer.
Yeah.
For me, I need to express our gratitude to YB Gobin for actually speaking about the Media Council. However, we need to emphasize that who are the stakeholders that he has been talking to, because clearly the National Press Club was not consulted, and a lot of other national unions and bodies were also not consulted. So in order to get this going, because this is a 30-year debate that we've been having about the council,
That's
so I
right.
hope we get it right.
That's right. Haresh, your blog site, website, the address is here on the
Yep,
screen
correct.
for our viewers who'd like to check out more on, I guess, deeper reporting and stories that you cover.
Hopefully.
Thank you so much to both of you for being in here, and I guess keep flying that flag high. And Faridah, that's your website as well on the screen for all our viewers. Remember, people behind the screens, behind the scenes, doing their best to bring reporting to you day and night. They are out there on the field. They are working when you sleep and to get you the right kind of news. Do your part, do not spread fake news, and try to be, I guess everybody's a reporter of some sort these days, isn't it? Everyone's a journalist. Social media
want to be.
is the new journalism. That's right. Well, thank you once again. And that's all the time we have on The Nation for today. Keep it locked on to Bernama News Channel for more updates coming your way. See you next time.